Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of the Practical PM, your friend, philosopher, and guide to product management. In this episode, we will talk about some of the legal concepts that product managers should be familiar with. There are two kinds of legal systems that affect everyone, whether they are individuals or companies. One is the law of the land, and the second is the contract law. Law of the land is a whole body of laws of many different kinds that are in force in any jurisdictions. These laws govern the functioning of pretty much all aspects of the society. And the jurisdictions can be small, like a specific community, panchayat, district, or they can be larger, like a state, a country, a region, or even larger territories. In India, it would start right at the top with the constitution and will include any number of laws in effect through governing bodies or legislature. Think of Indian Penal Code, Income Tax Act, Companies Act, the many case laws that are established through the judgment of courts in different cases, the many mandates and circulars by different government departments or statutory bodies like RBI rules, SEBI mandates, and so on. These laws give us many legal rights and also impose many legal obligations on us. The law of the land is universally applicable to anyone who comes within its jurisdiction. You can't stay in India and decide not to follow Indian laws. There will be consequences and punishments. You can't establish a company in India and have it not work according to the Companies Act. There will be consequences and you will not be able to do business. This is in contrast to the second legal system we want to talk about, which is that of contract laws. Contract laws do not create obligations or rights universally. They are only enforceable on the parties who have freely decided to enter into a contract, and it is the contract that decides what rights and obligations each of the parties have. The law of the land typically recognizes contract law and sets the framework under which the obligations of the contracts can be enforced and the rights under the contracts can be protected. For example, if you are working for a company, you and your employer have entered into an employment contract which stipulates the kind and amount of work you have to do, and in return the company has to pay you the stipulated salary. So if you have done your work according to the contract and the company refuses to keep their side of the bargain and they don't pay you the salary, then courts, which work under the framework of the law of the land, will help you enforce the company's obligation and will compel them to pay you your salary. There is a wide range of rights and obligations that can be created through contracts. A typical business works with many different contracts at any point of time. Apart from the employment contract with their employees, they will have contracts with their vendors, with their customers, with their partners, etc. Even if your company is, let's say, an online consumer business which does not sign separate contract with each of its users, your website or your app will typically have terms and conditions there, which serves as a contract between you and your users. You meaning your company and your users. Before we proceed further with this discussion, there is something important you must understand about contract laws. As I said earlier, contract law is recognized by the law of the land, and the rights and obligations created under a contract entered into by two parties freely are enforced by the law of the land, the mechanisms that they have created. However, there is one situation in which contracts are not valid. Contracts cannot violate the law of the land. To take a stark example, suppose two people entered into a contract where the person 2 is supposed to murder somebody in order to receive a certain payment from person 1. Now suppose this person 2 goes and actually commits the murder and then person 1 refuses to pay the money, then the court is not going to force the person 1 to pay the money. Since the action of the contract was murder, which is a violation of the law of the land, this contract is not valid. Instead, both person 2 and person 1 will face the consequences of the murder, which was obviously a gross violation of the law of the land. Practically in businesses, you will not be faced with such stark situations of the violation of the law of the land, but there are practical cases where you have to be aware that if a contract violates the law of the land, it will not be enforceable. For example, one important law governing the employment contract is Minimum Wages Act. Each state in India has specified certain minimum wages for different classes of employees. So if an employer and an employee enter into a contract which stipulates that the employee will be paid wages lower than the minimum wage in that state, then that contract will not be enforceable. If the person works and they are paid below minimum wages, they can go to the court later and the court is likely to make the employer pay at least minimum wages to this person, even though the contract stipulated otherwise. Now that we understand the law of the land and the contract laws, let us come to the legal context of product management. First, some basics of the law of the land. If your product sells things or services online, then you should be aware of the legalities of the stuff being sold in different jurisdictions. That is, the states and countries where you operate from and in. Assuming that the products and services are legal to sell, you should be aware of any tax implications and price laws. If the customers and the company are in different states or different countries, then interstate or inter-country complications may also come into picture. You will need to make sure that the accounting and legal departments in your company get all the relevant data in the right format and at suitable frequency so that they can be on top of all the legal and tax filing requirements. Another set of laws you should be aware of are the laws regarding the use of customer data. You may have obligations under the laws of the jurisdictions your company is in or under the laws of the jurisdictions that your customers are in. The GDPR related notices that you see on practically every website these days are there because those websites expect to cater to the customers in EU, even if they themselves are not based there. Just because you can technically collect certain data about your users, for example, technical data about their browsers and devices, or the demographic and personal data they have provided to you in the course of usage of your product, it does not mean that you can use them in any which way you can think of. The law of the land may prohibit certain kinds of uses. You may also have obligations to remove the data when requested. Even when the law permits certain uses of the data, you must very clearly specify its scope in your contract or terms and conditions. Involve your legal advisors early on so that you do not detect too late in the process that there were certain legal requirements you did not take care of and that those omissions are now very expensive to correct. Finally, be super aware of intellectual property laws. Patents, copyrights and trademarks are the most common kinds of intellectual property that you come across. Even among these, copyright is the one you tend to deal most often with, followed by trademarks. Let us take a moment to understand copyright. Copyright protects the ownership of creative work. Written work, photographs, paintings and other art forms, designs and sometimes even code is protected under copyright laws. One of the most important things to understand about copyright is that protection under copyright law is automatic. As soon as someone produces a creative work, they are protected against anyone else using it without their permission. They don't need to register copyright. They don't even have to put up a notice anywhere. Not understanding this automatic protection leads to a common confusion people have about work available freely in digital form or on internet. They believe that if some content is available in open and for free, then it is okay to put it to any possible use. It is not okay. You can't use somebody's article or photo posted on their blog or social media or anywhere else really in your product or website just because it was available freely somewhere. Keep that in mind about every piece of content or media you use in your product. There is a concept of fair use in copyright which allows reproduction of a small portion of copyright work for the purpose of comment, criticism, scholarly work, etc. It is under the principle of fair use that Google can show a title and small snippet of content from different websites. It is under this principle that Facebook can fetch a thumbnail image and snippet from the links which is shared on Facebook platform. Under the concept of fair use, it might be okay for you to post a small snippet from somebody's blog post and then link it to the original post. But it will not be okay to completely reproduce that blog post on your product. Trademarks are different from copyright. Trademark is a recognizable piece of insignia, word, phrase or symbol that uniquely denotes a product or a company. Trademark must be registered. There is no automatic protection for trademark like copyright. Trademarks typically protect brand names, logos, brand taglines, etc. So you would want to be careful about how you name your products and features. You would not want to infringe somebody else's trademarks. You should also not use another company's logo or brand taglines even if they are representing that company without confirming with your legal advisors first. At the same time, you should look out for opportunities in your product of registering some trademark and protecting it. It can become important intellectual property for the company. Copyright and trademark related discussion also segues well into the domain of contract laws. Copyright provides protection for creative work, but obviously the point of that protection is so that the owner of the work can benefit monetarily from it by letting other people use it. You can use copyrighted material by entering into a suitable contract with the copyright owner. These contractual relationships can be negotiated one-on-one or can be facilitated with standard agreements and platforms. The granting of use of copyrighted material of another person or entity is usually called a license. Whatever be the mode of getting a license, you should be clear about what exact uses are allowed under a license, in what volumes and for what period. For example, if you are using images from a site like Unsplash, then its license allows free and almost unlimited use. However, do check the details of the license carefully before using. Unsplash allows free and unlimited use for all non-commercial and commercial purposes. Even the attribution is not required. You can use Unsplash photos in your content on your website, even in your commercial products. However, one thing that you cannot do with those photos is sell them as it is. You can use those photos and create something substantially different, in which case it is okay to sell it for profit, but not the photos by themselves. Another thing that the license does not allow is to use these photos from Unsplash to create another Unsplash-like services. These may sound obvious, but it is important to be aware that these are the cases that are not allowed on a site which otherwise gives pretty much unlimited use. Open source and Creative Commons licenses are often used by content creators to allow free use for different purposes. However, not all open source or Creative Commons licenses are created equal. So you must check the individual license to see what is allowed and not allowed under it before using any creative work released under these licenses. For example, if a piece of code is released under an open source license, it is often considered a ticket to using it in whichever possible way you want. However, there are open source licenses which stipulate that you cannot use this code in a piece of code which you intend to sell further. Or there are licenses which stipulate that if you use their code in your product, then you have to open source your product as well, which may not work for your product or company. Even in Creative Commons licenses, there are licenses which may allow for practically unlimited use, but there are others which, for example, do not allow derivative work, or there are licenses which require you to give attribution to the original creator. The nature of license also must be checked when you are using commercial products. Whether you are signing an individual contract or accepting their general terms and conditions, be sure to always check what you are and aren't allowed to do with that product under the license. If you have user-generated content on your product, then your terms and conditions should clearly lay out the scope of the use you can put it to. Who owns the copyright? What kind of licensing do you get on the content and for what period? Apart from the use of intellectual property, when you are getting into a contract with another entity, whether an individual or a company, also be mindful of things like SLA promises, service level agreement. When something goes wrong or when SLA is breached, what kind of remedies are available? Depending on how critical the product or service in question is, you may need to arrange for backups and alternatives in your product planning if the other party is not providing it. You would also want to be aware of things like, will the contract auto renew or will somebody need to restart the commercial discussions before expiry? Will the other party provide all the documents needed for tax and legal purposes? What is the kind of support included in the contract or available separately, and so on. Another aspect of the contract law you would deal with is your own product's terms and conditions, which is essentially your contract with your users. If you are a B2B organization, you may be doing individual contract with different customers, but in most B2C cases or even mass B2B products, it will be your standard terms and conditions. If you are launching any new features, you must take care to evaluate if it will create any new liabilities for you or your users. If it does, then terms and conditions must be suitably updated and consumers or users must be notified. In general, you will have legal help to take you through all this. You are not expected to be a lawyer yourself. But as a product manager, what is important for you to do is seek legal review and help at the right time. Point out any specific areas that they should look closely at from legal perspective and translate any legal constraints and requirements into product requirement early on. And since I'm talking about legal stuff, I must be legally careful and put out this disclaimer. I am a product manager, I am not a lawyer. This episode is not to be construed as legal advice. This does not claim to be complete, accurate, or suitable even as business advice. This episode is not at all a substitute for legal counsel. That is it for this episode. In the next episode, I will wrap up the practical PM discussion by taking a holistic look at the role of a product manager and talk about a very important task that the product managers must do, that of documentation. Thank you so much for watching. Do tune into the next episode as well.